Today we're going to be talking about the sad truth about the endgame for Barbarians overall here. A lot of information to go over. I mean, not too much, but pretty important things that players should know if you're considering making a Barbarian and you're going to get all the way to the endgame, or if it's an alt character. And this isn't just going to be a whining video. There are definitely some high points and low points, and I think the low points are not talked about enough because not enough players are really deep into the end game to kind of speak about them on a social media platform. So that's what I'm here to do today, and let's dive straight into it. What's up, Barbarians? It is Murdering, and we were talking about some pros and definitely some cons about the endgame of the Barbarian. So first, let's just talk about the good stuff, because it's always good to kind of start off on a positive note. First of all, Barbarian is arguably the most fun class from like level 70 to 90. I have every single class leveled up to World Tier 4, including a level 100 Barbarian, besides the Rogue. The Rogue does not appeal to me at all. I've watched builds, I've seen friends play Rogue. I don't know what it is about the Rogue, but I even forgot it in one video I did previously. You probably remember that, but it's just not for me. So every other class, World Tier 4, pumping gear, their builds are rolling, and I can say that from like level, I mean, we can go even lower, like 60 to 90, Barbarian has been the most fun class I've played by far. Why has it been fun? Because the build diversity is surprisingly huge. You can get away with many builds. You're not constricted to too many skills, which is very different from the end game, and the skills feel strong. They perform, giving you very high numbers a lot of the times, or many yellow numbers quickly, which is a crit, of course. And the whole design of Barbarian kind of takes off in that window. The issue is, and why it's kind of hard to give a level number to it, is because the higher content you attempt to do, the more you start to realize there are some really fundamental issues with Barbarian. So the first issue is going to be the Barbarian design overall. Why does it spike so well at these levels? Because Blizzard, for some reason, decided to give us 4 weapons to use. 2 two-handers and 2 one-handers. How they thought it was going to be possible to balance a class with this many raw stats at our disposal is beyond me and probably every other endgame Barbarian that's been playing. So what did they do? They made it pretty much mandatory to have 3 war cries on your bar at all times. Which I'm going to tell you right now, and I'm not going to say I speak for everyone, but definitely the majority, that feels terrible. Having, like I said, such an amazing kit with so many fun abilities. Iron Maelstrom. This is like the coolest ability to use, right? It just looks cool when you use it. Period. Call of the Ancients. You use it while leveling. Really cool skill once again. There's an aspect that can summon while using other skills. There's just so many cool interactions between Call of the Ancients. However, those aren't even the main skills. Things like Death Blow, Steel Grasp. I recently made a Hammer of the Ancients build with Steel Grasp. You're like Scorpion from Mortal Kombat. You're grabbing enemies, you're pulling them to you, and then you're smashing them for like tens of millions of damage. I even was hitting for 20. I've seen 60 million crits before. So that's what you can do. The problem is once you start pushing, they gotta go, which is the issue with Barbarian overall here. Leap is really fun. Charge is really fun, kick is really fun. I mean, just listen to how cool all of these are. The fact that your core kit is centered around this part of the screen here that we can see, this part of the skill tree, 1 shout, 2 shout, 3 shout. The fact that this is the core part of our build in the defensive and brawling section is just bad design. It really is. And it's a result of, honestly, I'm pretty sure it's a result of the 4 weapons and them just nerfing things to the ground. So while other builds aren't viable, you are going to be limited, literally limited to the content you can do because of the current design of this class. So the second major issue is the leveling feels horrendous. Why does the leveling feel horrendous? Because for some reason, They decided to lock the most important substats you can roll on gear, being cooldown reduction, fury cost reduction, and resource generation behind World Tier 4. So on top of that, the amount of people who probably want to play Barbarian and get to this section of the most fun the class could ever be, they're just not making it there. Because it's gated behind a higher level than most players are at. If you saw the Campfire dev chat, most players are still going through the campaign right now. Am I saying you can't have fun in the campaign with Barbarian? Absolutely not. There are some pretty strong builds using random fun animation skills that you can kind of throw onto your whole bar and just smash things. Very viable. But as soon as you get to the point where you take this Unbridled Rage, the best final tier skill point by a mile. Like, the others aren't even close. This is just the best by a mile. But cost 100% more multiplicative fury. You're killing your character early on because when you're first taking this, you don't have access to the core substat rules you need to sustain this. On top of the aspects, of course, the Bold Chieftain's Loop, which is heavily RNG, Echoing Fury. You can get it as an imprint. I'm using the base imprint level and it's fine, but it's not the greatest. But Bold Chieftain's really the big one here. So what they were thinking when they gave us all of these nerfs, I mean, some nerfs like the Ancestral Gloves Gore that were critting for 1 billion damage, nerf that 100%. To nerf the shouts, they could have done better. They really, really could have done better. So that's another huge flaw of this class here. You're putting a burden on players to make it through the leveling process. What kind of design for a class is, if you can suffer and make it through, granted you can use some fun abilities, but if you can make it through the campaign leveling process to the most fun part of this guy's build, you'll enjoy the game so much. That is terrible game design. Period. Now, the last thing that I want to talk about, even though I briefly mentioned how fun it was in between that threshold, but the last con and negative that I want to talk about for Barbarians is going to be, like I said, as someone that's pretty much done the whole game. I mean, I haven't done 100 yet. You're going to see exactly why. I've spent 20 plus hours in the 90 sigils, and so we're going to get to that now. But before that, game's brilliant. Once you hit that point, it's such a feel-good moment for Barbarians. But again, going further, and this is the final negative point, you're back into the leveling slump. Content starts getting harder. You have to start stacking armor over and over and over again on all of your pieces of gear, which isn't that bad. It's a natural part of gear progression. And then once you finally do that, you start going into the high tier maps, tier 90 maps. And the random affixes are the most punishing for the one viable push build for Barbarians, which is going to be, let's go to the skill really quickly, Hammer of the Ancients, right here. Now, I'm pretty sure this is a bug, but for those of you who don't know, let me just see if there's yeah, so nothing here says it's supposed to do this, but it says dealing damage to a concentrated area. Like every ability in this game, Hammer of the Ancients is a hitbox. If you hit something just at the tip of the hitbox of Hammer of the Ancients, it's doing a ridiculous amount of damage, more than if you hit it dead on. So with that, you have to kind of design your entire playstyle around that type of multiplier. So if you're walking in a hallway, and I wish I had a clip of it, but this is going to be good enough because this is, I guess this is in a hallway. So if you're walking right here in a hallway and you're fighting and you're saying, okay, there's a mob right here. This is the mob I have to hit. So I have to be standing pretty much right here to smash Hammer the Ancients and clip it with the edge of that AoE hitbox to get the big multiplier. Now, this happened to me multiple times, and I died to this multiple times while pushing, and it's the most frustrating thing in the world. The Waller elites in this game, for some reason, put the walls through the wall or right on top of the wall. So if I'm standing here, and the Waller decides to put down its little rectangle section, it's going to move my character model into the wall here and pin me there. How is this good design? So what I have to do then is smash my Hammer of the Ancients to try to hit the hitbox for the wall. Now, if it's outside of the hitbox of Hammer the Ancients, you already guess what's going to happen. I am going to be pinned there for the duration of that wall, or unless I kill the elite, which I definitely could do, assuming the elite's close enough to me to survive that. Now, pair that mechanic with anything else. A poison pool beneath your feet, which at a high difficulty is going to kill you in about 3 seconds, unless you're spamming elixirs to cleanse yourself. Any deadly affix that spawns at the feet of killed enemies. So if you're pinned here, what's the normal panic reaction? Start smashing the ground to see if you can A, break yourself out, and while you're doing that, you're going to kill mobs underneath you. If you have an affix that's going to spawn something lethal on the kill of any mob, you're dead again. And there's no way to outplay this. You can say skill issue all you want, but you cannot predict the random direction a waller is going to place its wall that's just going to pin you in spot, and you have no way to get out until the duration's over, or if the elite's in range for you to hopefully one-shot it. So that's just the first thing. There are many other mechanics that are very, very similar to that. The next thing we're going to talk about is probably the easiest thing they could ever fix in the game, and it's been an issue since day one. It's using your shout abilities, because as we said already, using 4 shouts pretty much, and in progression you drop Wrath of the Berserker for even more survivability, because melee, it ain't it. Melee for pushing is like a miserable experience because we only have one build to use, and that build is very positioning heavy. So the main issue is you can only use 2 shouts at a time, unless you figure out how to make some crazy keybind where you're binding things. I don't even know how that would work, but I don't know if I heard of anybody doing that, but I'm sure someone could figure it out. What do I mean? If you want to use Rallying Cry, War Cry, and Challenging Shout, which generally use at the same time, you can. You're going to hit all 3 of them, and only 2 of them are going to go off, and it's going to be random which ones go off. So now you have to pick, what are my 2 most important ones? It's always going to be Challenging Shout. What happens if the cooldowns are staggered and Challenging Shout isn't off cooldown yet? Well, you're probably getting one shot, because 1 second of downtime on this 54% damage reduction for 7.43 seconds is going to kill you. So there's another terrible design flaw here. So you have to be spamming 2 shouts at a time, then you could have no rage on top of that, or you have to use your Challenging Shout and the rage gain one, and then you can get CC'd as soon as the Unstoppable Rake has worn off. And like I said, you're not taking Wrath of the Berserker anymore, so there's just, you can kind of see what I'm getting at here. The fact that you can't hit all 3 at the same time, so they all come off of cooldown at the same time, based on the RNG of reducing your shout cooldowns, is just terrible. This is something they should have fixed literally day 2, and the fact that it's still broken now is kind of weird here. So to add on all of that, you have a lot of clickable application buffs like Iron Skin. For some reason, if you want to hit all 5 of these abilities at the same time, you would be surprised as to which ones are going to go off and which ones are not going to go off. And if you're timing mechanics properly, which everyone should be, you're not going to be just randomly wasting a defense if you use it at a specific time. If you want to click that while you're clicking other abilities and it doesn't go off because of some ungodly reason in this game, you're dead. Again, very, very bad game design, and I'm sure it'll get fixed eventually, but I don't know. That's just a very large issue with Barbarians as a whole when you are pushing that later on content. Now the second thing I want to talk about and show you could be a me issue, so I'm curious about your feedback on this. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to take Hammer of the Ancients, put on my bar. Okay. So, if I want to slam the ground, you see how I can't, maybe there's a force attack move that I don't know about, but I couldn't find it. So if I just want to smash the ground here with no mob around, I cannot do that. What does that mean for pushing? If you're not clicking on something, you're not using the ability. Like I said, I'll look through the, I'm doing negative damage because I'm in a Whirwind build. Okay, here we go. So what I'll do right now is I'll look through the options, and if you see it somewhere, please let me know. So I got rid of this for one. I wanted everything separate. Okay. Interact, move and interact, that's not it. Skill slot, core skill slot. So I'm looking for an auto attack move that does not require a mob. Like I said, if it's just me, okay, return to game so I don't die here. Okay, I have Fear Fury. Okay, I have Full Fury once again here. I may collect this, so I just want to use Hammer of the Ancients right here. Not letting me do it. not letting me do it. I have to actually click on the mobs. Why is it such a bad thing for pushing? Because if these guys were in the high tiers of pushing, one hit, sometimes even with all your defensives ups, is going to kill you. So the fact that I can't use the hitbox to my advantage and click right here where I'm clicking on the ground, and you can see if I click away from them, it's actually going to click on the mob anyways, so it's like a smart cast thing, which is not good. This is another thing that if you fix this, Barbarian becomes so much better. Hammer of the Ancients becomes so much better. I want to give a huge shout out to Rob, by the way. Hey, yo, how you doing, man? For clearing Nightmare 100. Because like I said, I spent 20 hours in 90 plus sigils alone, fishing for maps, getting the worst RNG, like I was talking about. And I just said, no, I'm not doing this. This is not fun, first of all. There's nothing fun about this. Having to RNG my way to content I know I can clear because I'm good enough to clear. You just make one mistake or get walled into a wall, and you lose a death there. And like, deaths are going to happen. Yes, you can say, we'll just play perfect for the other 3 deaths. Valid point. But the fact that you're losing deaths to stupid things that's because of the class design is just not fun. You might be thinking, Murder, I'm never going to push 100, so this doesn't apply to me. This applies to anyone who's pushing Nightmare Dungeons, because you can only go so far with Whirwind. Because again, the problem with Whirwind is, Hammer of the Ancients is so strong because you're one-shotting the mobs. You're one-shotting before you're getting one-shot on top of stacking insane armor. For Whirlwind, you're not doing that. It's tons of hits where you can do decent damage, but you have to take a ton of damage too, and I haven't been able to push past 80 for Whirlwind. I think most players I know about with perfect gear haven't even touched the 80 threshold or gotten close to it, so it is what it is from that standpoint. So I kind of just wanted to make this video and see where you guys are at, get some feedback for you. Have you experienced the same things as I have, where it's just been frustrating? Because listen, I love Barbarian. You can probably tell from my videos, I love making builds. Some of the builds in this class are incredible. The problem is the fact that they fall off so hard is ridiculous. And for Hammer of the Ancients, our only option of pushing, the fact that so many affixes directly affect us. And you might be thinking, Murder, it's the same for every single class. It's not. I've watched the 100 clears on other classes, and they do not have to use positional damage dealing, and they do not have to have shout uptime and rely on RNG cooldown reduction for your shouts to survive basic mechanics. Barbarian does. Now, there are classes who haven't even cleared 100. That's a totally separate topic. I'm not saying boohoo buff barbs because we need help. No. I'm pretty sure barbs are uncontested the strongest class between 60 and 90, and like nobody's close. But once you start going beyond that point, the fall off is just sad to see. It's similar to like early leveling. I've already made this comparison before, but this is what they can fix. I'm curious as to your feedback. Leave it in the comments below. What can they do to make this class better? I've thought about it for a while. I got nothing. I mean, the 4-weapon system, while the arsenal system's cool, there are no viable builds for it that can actually do anything for the majority of this game. Right? What does arsenal mean? It means swapping from weapon type to weapon type to weapon type and getting a big bonus based on that. There are so many cool aspects for it, but since we're locked into these 3 shouts, if you're trying to push any real content, they just killed it. So what's the point of having 4 weapons here? I think they could do something with that. Maybe getting rid of the arsenal system or reworking it somehow, or disabling the stats on a weapon. I don't know. I really don't know what they can do, because they kind of goofed really hard by giving this class so many stat sticks compared to every other class in the game, and thinking they can balance similar gear types with something like this in the game. So my rant's over. Hopefully you guys agree with me. If not, I mean, first of all, let me know if there's some type of force attack. That's what I need to know about. If there is, leave it in the comment section for sure. Like I said, I have so many hours played in this game, and I could not find anywhere where you can just smash an ability wherever you want if you have the resources for it. Which, if I could find that, I'm pushing 100 like as soon as I figure out what that keybind is. But until that happens, there's no way I'm wasting my time and going through that pain and suffering of gambling sigils over and over again just to say I did a 100 clear. Not until the game is better, in my perspective at least. So what I wanted to be a short video ended up being a little bit longer than I wanted, so that's it. Leave a comment, give me your feedback, hopefully you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next upload.